A couple of years ago, I was on a road trip for my freelance photography. I was 32 and loved finding inspiration in forgotten places. I spotted an old motel on a desolate highway and pulled over. The sun was setting, casting an eerie light on the building. It felt strange but thrilling, and I couldn't shake off that feeling. I parked my car and stepped out. The air felt heavy around me. There were abandoned gas stations and rusted signs scattered about. I started taking pictures, inching closer to the motel. It looked deserted, but the windows were suspiciously clean. I shrugged it off as nothing. After snapping a few shots, I headed inside to check in. The clerk on duty seemed distant and uninterested, but I smiled anyway and got my room key. My room had that familiar musty smell. Once I settled in, I noticed muffled conversations coming from the walls. I thought it was another guest, maybe having a late-night chat. But the voices were low and urgent. I tried to ignore them and put my camera down, but I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, feeling uneasy. As the days went by, the voices grew louder. I could never quite make out the words, but something about them made my skin crawl. I would catch glimpses of shadows moving near the old playground next door. Each time I tried to focus, they'd vanish. My heart raced every time I saw them. It felt like someone was always watching me. The third night was the worst. I couldn't sleep at all. The voices turned into whispers in my dreams, mixing with the shadows outside. I sat up, cold sweat dripping down my back. I looked toward the window, expecting to see something. But it was dark and empty. I thought maybe I was imagining things. It had to be my overactive mind. Then I heard a knock on my door. My heart jolted. I froze, unsure if I should answer. After a few seconds, another knock echoed through the silence. I couldn't ignore it. I walked over slowly and opened the door. My pulse raced. I stepped outside, my stomach churning. No one was there. Just silence hung in the air. I strained to hear the whispers, but they disappeared. I walked toward the playground, feeling my skin crawl. I found the old swings swaying in the wind, creaking eerily. They reminded me of laughter that used to fill that space. Then I heard a soft voice calling my name. I spun around, breath catching in my throat. But it was empty. There was no one there. I thought it was all in my head, but it felt real. I hurried back to my room, panic rising in my chest. I didn't sleep that night. My mind kept racing with thoughts of the voices. Who were they? What did they want? I never found those answers. All I got was that unsettling feeling of being watched. Even after I left the motel, I still felt it follow me. The next day, I decided to drive away. I thought getting back on the road would clear my head. I craved the open highway, the freedom of movement. I packed my things and checked out of the motel. The clerk barely acknowledged me as I returned the key. I fought the urge to look back, the feeling of being watched still weighing heavily on me. I headed south, the early morning sun shining bright. The scenery changed quickly, from desolate roads to rolling hills and blooming wildflowers. It should have felt refreshing, but an undercurrent of dread settled in my stomach. I turned the radio on, hoping for a distraction. But all I got was static, cutting in and out. After a couple of hours, I pulled over at a small diner. The sign flickered in the sunlight. I hoped a hot cup of coffee would help. When I walked in, it felt different. The air was thick and heavy, almost like stepping back into the motel for a moment. The few customers at the counter were silent, staring blankly. I ordered my drink, but I noticed the waitress lingered too long, her eyes darting toward the door. As I sat there, trying to shake off the unease, I overheard the whispered conversation between two men at the back booth. "You saw him, didn't you?" One said, voice low and shaky. "I told you not to go near that place." My stomach twisted. I leaned closer, trying to catch every word. "The shadows, they don't leave anyone alone," the other replied, looking around nervously. I ducked my head, hoping they wouldn't see me listening. My instincts screamed that this had to be about the motel. The way they spoke felt purposeful. There was fear behind their words. Clicking my cup, the waitress interrupted my thoughts. "You okay, Han?" she asked, her gaze piercing. I forced a smile and nodded, but my heart raced as I tried to act normal. There was something unsettling about her hospitality. I finished my coffee quickly and slipped out of the diner, feeling the weight of invisible eyes on me. Back in my car, I couldn't shake the feeling that I needed to know more. What were they talking about? Why were they so afraid? I started the engine, my mind racing. For the first time, I felt that maybe leaving the motel hadn't been the right decision. I drove back toward the diner and my heartbeat quickened as I felt the familiar pull of the past. I could still hear those whispers, those urgent voices warning about shadows that don't leave. Then everything changed. As I turned the car around, I spotted something in the road. I slammed on the brakes. It was an old, frayed teddy bear laying there, its button eye reflecting the sunlight. A chill ran through me. It looked too familiar. I'd seen it before next to that old playground. I got out of the car, a sense of dread washing over me. That was a sign, I thought. But from what? Or whom? That's when I saw it, a figure standing a few yards away, half hidden behind a tree. My breath hitched in my throat. I couldn't see their face, but I felt those eyes on me, yet again. I hesitated, the decision weighing heavily on me. Do I confront this figure or turn back? And most importantly, who were they? I stood there, frozen in place, staring at the shadow. The figure didn't move, but I could feel an invisible string connecting us. The longer I looked, the more unnerved I felt. "Hello?" I finally called out, my voice trembling. The figure tensed but didn't respond. I took a cautious step forward. The teddy bear was still lying in the road, and everything felt wrong. The figure shifted slightly, just enough for a glimmer of sunlight to hit their face. My heart pounded with recognition. It was a young girl, maybe 7 or 8, with tangled hair covering her eyes. "You shouldn't be here," she whispered, her voice barely above a breath. I felt the hair on my neck stand up. "What do you mean?" I asked, my throat dry. I was taking another step, drawn to her somehow, but an instinct told me to pause. A gust of wind rustled through the trees, and the world went quiet. The girl stepped into the light. Her clothes were tattered, and smudges of dirt covered her cheeks. She looked frightened, and a shiver ran through me. "They're coming," she said urgently. "You have to leave." Who was she? I wanted to ask, but fear lodged in my throat. The feeling of being trapped tightened around me. "Who's coming?" I managed to choke out. She opened her mouth, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she pointed past me, and my heart raced. I felt a presence behind me, something lurking just out of sight. I swung around, but there was nothing, only the empty road and the whisper of the wind. When I turned back to the girl, she was gone. My stomach twisted. I felt as if I had just missed something vital. I scanned the area, hoping to catch sight of her again, but the trees stood still, indifferent to my fear. That's when I noticed the teddy bear. The eye that had glinted in the sun was now clouded, as if it had been watching me. I had to find answers. I hurried back to my car, the earlier unease now morphing into panic. I drove back to the diner, my mind racing with questions. Who was that girl? What did she mean about they? I couldn't shake the sense of urgency that filled me. As I parked, the diner's neon lights buzzed over me like angry wasps. I stepped inside, the few patrons still glued to their food, silence wrapping around them like a fog. The waitress was at the counter again, and as our eyes met, a flicker of recognition passed through her. "Back already?" she said with a tight-lipped smile, but her eyes held a glint of something darker, a knowing. "Do you know anything about a little girl?" I fired back, ignoring the way her smile faltered. She looked around. "You should sit down," she whispered, glancing toward the back booth. I felt a rush of dread fill the space between us. "Why?" I asked, but I didn't need an answer. I was about to learn something I might not want to know. I slid into the booth, the cracked vinyl sticking to my skin. The diner felt more claustrophobic now, the blinking lights and muted conversations twisting into something sinister. The waitress, Lisa, leaned in closer. "There's something you need to know about that girl," she said, her voice barely a whisper. "She doesn't belong here." "What do you mean?" I asked, a chill creeping down my spine. Is she okay?" She shook her head. "No one ever sees her unless they're in trouble," she said. "Some say she's a lost soul, stuck in between worlds. Others think she's a warning." I blinked. A warning? A warning about what? Desperation scrambled my brain. "About them," she replied, glancing nervously toward the front of the diner. "The shadows that follow her. The things that come for those who linger too long." A shudder ran through me. I remembered the girl's haunted gaze, her urgent whispers, and the feeling of dread that had settled over me. "What kind of things?" "I don't know exactly. Just that they seek out anyone curious about her." Her voice dropped, filled with urgency. "You need to leave this place. Go far away from here. Now." The front door swung open, and I turned instinctively. A figure entered, a tall man in a dark coat with a wide-brimmed hat that obscured his face. I felt my pulse quicken. All eyes in the diner shifted toward him, and an electric tension filled the air. I shifted in my seat, my hands clammy. "Is he one of them?" I whispered, my voice barely carrying over the hum of the diner. "I don't know," Lisa said, her breath hitching. "But I don't want to find out either." The man moved toward the counter, his movements fluid and deliberate. I could see nothing but shadows where his face should be, making the entire scene feel unreal. It was as if he were drawing the light away from the space around him. "Get out," Lisa urged. "Now." I didn't need to be told twice. I hopped up from the booth, the clatter of my chair echoing in the sudden silence. I bolted toward the door, but as I reached for the handle, a sensation, a presence stopped me. A cold breath washed over me, and I turned back. The man was now standing at the entrance, blocking my exit. His hat tilted slightly, enough for me to glimpse a wicked grin etched into his face. The diner was suddenly too quiet. Patrons no longer ate or spoke, they just stared, watching me with chilling expectation. "Why are you here?" the man murmured. The voice was a low melody, smooth but laced with a darkness that sent my heart racing. Before I could answer, the lights flickered, and I felt the shadows around me almost sway with anticipation. That's when I saw it, a reflection in the window behind him. The girl, standing just outside, her eyes wide, pleading. Then everything went dark. I opened my eyes, but the darkness didn't lift. My heart raced in my chest, the oppressive blackness tightening around me. I blinked, desperately trying to regain my bearings. Then I felt a cool, clammy hand gripping my wrist. Panic surged through me. I turned, my pulse thundering in my ears. The diner was gone. Instead, I was in a small, dimly lit room. The air was heavy, like I was being watched, but by what, I couldn't tell. Shadows curled in the corners, writhing like smoke. "Hello?" I called, my voice trembling. No response came, just a chilling silence pressing down on me. That's when I heard a low, soft giggle. I froze, the sound sending a jolt of fear through me. I scanned the room, but it was empty. Just when I thought I could breathe a little easier, I felt a tug at my sleeve. I turned to see her, the girl from the diner, standing just a few feet away. Her eyes were wide, filled with a mix of fear and urgency. "You have to listen to me," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I took a step back. "What happened? Where are we?" "We're safe for now," she said quickly. "But soon, they'll know you're here." "Who? The man?" I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. She nodded. "He's one of the shadows. He's searching for you because you saw me. You can't stay here. You need to find the door." I blinked. "What door? What are you even talking about?" But before she could answer, the shadows in the room grew thicker, swirling like a storm. Her eyes widened in fear, and I could feel the air crackle with a terrible energy. "Run!" she shouted. Suddenly, the walls began to tremble. I turned, desperately searching for an escape. A flicker of light caught my eye at the far side of the room. Without thinking, I raced toward it, my heart pounding. The darkness clawed at me, trying to pull me back. Just as I reached the light, something cold brushed against my arm. I barely glimpsed a face twisted, grotesque before I dove through the door and stumbled into the open air. I landed hard on asphalt, gasping as I pushed myself up. I was back in the diner, but it felt different. The hum of conversation and the smell of coffee surrounded me, normalcy wrapping around me like a blanket. But I wasn't fooled. I turned, searching for the girl. She stood at the edge of the parking lot, a faint glow around her. Her expression was solemn, a silent warning in her gaze. "Stay away from the shadows," she said, her voice barely audible over the noise from inside. "They're always watching." Before I could respond, a shadow passed by behind her, and I instinctively backed away. The man from before loomed behind her, his grin even more menacing than in my memory. I looked back just in time to see the girl vanish, leaving only the dim glow of the streetlight illuminating the pavement. "Why are you still here?" he asked, voice dripping with temptation. "You should be with her. Trust me, it's better on this side." I stumbled back, feeling the weight of his words. The diner felt like a prison, but outside lurked the unknown. I couldn't tell what was worse. A new urgency gripped me as I turned back to the door, ready to escape. But as I pushed through, I realized I was not sure where to go next. Inside the diner, I felt the weight of stares. Conversations resumed around me, but I was in a fog. I glanced around, hoping the girl might reappear. What was happening to me? Was I still dreaming? I made my way to a booth, trying to blend in. I needed to think. The clatter of plates and the whir of the coffee maker didn't calm my racing heart. I scanned the faces of the patrons, half expecting to see the man again, but it was just ordinary people, eating and laughing. That's when I noticed a newspaper on the edge of my table, its headline screaming for attention: "Mysterious disappearances continue." A photo of the girl from the diner was printed below, surrounded by a red circle. My stomach lurched. I was sure it was her, the same wide eyes, the same desperate expression. I picked up the paper, flipping through it frantically. Articles about missing persons. Voice notes from friends and family begging for help. Anxiety twisted my gut. I couldn't shake the feeling that she was linked to all of this. "Hey, you okay?" A waitress stood over me, concern etched on her face. I realized I must have been staring blankly at the paper. Yeah. Just, lost in thought." I forced a smile, though it felt brittle. She nodded, but her gaze flicked to the paper before returning to my face. "You should be careful, honey. Not everyone here is what they seem." I met her eyes, searching for meaning. "What do you mean?" "Just a warning," she said, turning back to the bustling kitchen. Be wary of who you trust. Those words hung in the air. I set the paper down and took a deep breath. I had to find a way to stop this cycle, whatever this was. My attention returned to the front of the diner, where the window revealed the parking lot. I spotted a figure lurking near my car. The man. He leaned against my vehicle, the streetlights reflecting off his sharp features. My breath caught in my throat. He looked relaxed and confident, as if he belonged there. Pooling dread enveloped me. I needed to leave. Instead of approaching, I ducked down in my seat, trying to remain unseen. Racing thoughts consumed me. What was he looking for? Did he know where I'd been? I couldn't waste time. I felt a rush of energy. I reached for my phone, but a sinking feeling washed over me when I realized I'd left it on the seat of my car. Panic gripped me as I remembered the last time I looked at the screen. The photo of the girl had been there, waiting for me to process this horrifying reality. Suddenly, the door swung open. I stiffened, bracing myself. The man stepped inside, scanning the diner with cold, calculating eyes. My heart raced, each thud echoing in my ears. He was looking for me. He approached the counter, leaning over to speak with a couple of patrons. I glanced at the exit, feeling an urgency swell within me. That thought of freedom turned into a desperate need. As he laughed at something one of them said, I slipped out of the booth, my legs shaking beneath me. I edged toward the door, glancing back one last time. Then everything went dark. The lights flickered, plunging the diner into chaos. Shouts rang out, and I stumbled for the exit, praying to escape whatever was about to unfold. I reached the door, threw it open, and stepped into the night. But as I turned to run, a cold hand grabbed my arm, and my pulse quickened with unease. "Where do you think you're going?" It was the girl again, her face etched with urgency. "You don't understand. He's coming for you, and the shadows are closer than you think." I gasped, heart racing as I turned to look over my shoulder, the darkness pooling behind me, waiting. I froze, her words sinking in. Shadows? What did she mean? I jerked my arm free, taking a step back. "I don't understand what's happening," I stammered. She looked around nervously. "You need to trust me. We don't have much time. He's on your trail. You need to hide." I scanned the street, my heart racing. The man from the diner was still somewhere inside, but the girl's panic forced me to focus. "Why me? Why are you involved in this?" "Because you saw something you weren't supposed to. That photograph on your phone, it's a key," she said, urgency lacing her voice. "You have to get it back. It holds the answer." My mind raced. The photo. I had to get back to my car. But he's out there. I glanced behind me, the diner's door still swinging slightly. If I turned around, he could spot me. "Trust me," she whispered fiercely. "There's a place I know where we can go. Just stick close." Before I could respond, she grabbed my wrist and pulled me away from the diner. We ducked behind a parked truck, trying to blend into the shadows. My breath quickened. Every rustle felt like someone was watching us. "Where to?" I whispered, my mind spinning with questions. "The old gas station on Route 12. It's abandoned, but it should be safe for now," she said, glancing back toward the diner's entrance. "Why not just call the police?" I asked, desperately wanting someone else to get involved. "No. They're already part of it, and they won't help you. You don't know who you can trust," she said, agitation rising in her voice. "You have to believe me." The words echoed in my mind, pushing me further into confusion. I had no idea who she was, but her fear seemed genuine. I couldn't ignore the warning from the waitress either. The stakes felt far too high. "Okay," I said, steeling myself. "Let us go. But I need my phone." We slipped into an alley behind the diner, rushing toward my car. Every shadow felt like a threat. When we finally reached my vehicle, I quickly opened the door, snatching up the phone. My hands trembled as I glanced at the recent photos. The one of the girl was still there, eerily clear. "Get in," the girl urged, glancing behind us. I climbed into the driver's seat, fumbling with my keys as panic surged. Suddenly, I felt eyes on me. Turning, I spotted the man from the diner, standing at the mouth of the alley, his gaze locked on us. "Drive," she shouted. I turned the key, and the engine roared to life. As I slammed the accelerator, we shot forward, the tires squealing. Heart pounding, I risked a glance in the rearview mirror. The man was following, not running, but walking calmly as if he was confident he would catch us. "What does he want?" I yelled, keeping my eyes on the road. "He wants the photo. He doesn't want you to know what it reveals." I gripped the wheel tighter. "And what is that?" Then, without warning, my phone buzzed in my lap. An unknown number flashed on the screen. I was terrified and curious. Should I answer it? I stole a quick glance at the girl. "Should I pick it up?" "Don't," she shouted just as I pressed the answer button. "It's too late," a cold voice crackled through the speaker. "You can't hide forever." The line went dead. And suddenly, I realized that whatever was happening was far from over. My next moves would decide not just my fate, but potentially the fate of others, too. What had I stumbled into? I slammed the phone down in frustration and dread. What does that even mean? Panic bubbled in my gut as I focused on the road ahead. The street was dark, each turn feeling like a step deeper into an unknown danger. "Just focus on getting us away from him," the girl said urgently, her voice steady despite the fear dripping from her words. I glanced at her. She was staring out the window, her eyes scanning the shadows almost instinctively. "Turn left at that light. We need to get off the main road." I made the turn, my mind racing. Who was that man? Why did he want the photo? And what was in it that I needed to know? "What's your name?" I asked, hoping for a piece of stability in this whirlwind. "Lena," she replied without looking at me. "And I wish I could tell you more, but right now, we just need to keep moving." "Great. Just Lena." I shook my head in disbelief. "This is surreal." "Just drive," she insisted. "We need to get to the gas station and figure out our next step." "You said you have the photo? Does it show anything specific?" I gripped the steering wheel harder. "It was just a picture of you. There's more to it. Trust me. You need to look closer." After a few minutes that felt like hours, we reached the abandoned gas station. The place was dark and seemed frozen in time, forgotten by everyone. I parked, glancing around nervously. "Is anyone following us?" Lena squinted into the distance. "Not that I can see." I drew a shaky breath. "I don't know if I want to get out." But as I said it, I knew we couldn't stay in the car. I felt exposed and vulnerable. "Just be quick. We can't stay exposed out here for too long." She opened her door and stepped out, scanning the dark. Against my better judgment, I joined her. We moved around to the back of the gas station, where the light barely pierced the gloom. I pulled out my phone. "Okay, let's see what's in this picture." Lena leaned closer, a mix of determination and fear etched on her face. I opened the photo, and as I zoomed in, my heart sank. There, behind her smiling face, I caught a glimpse of a figure in the far background. The man stood in the shadows, just out of focus, but unmistakably there. "That's him." Lena gasped, her voice low and urgent. "He's been watching me." "What do you mean watching you?" I glanced around, instinctively looking over my shoulder as if he would suddenly appear. I only realized it after. He's been following me for weeks, ever since I uncovered something I wasn't supposed to. That photo was meant to document evidence. Her words spilled out in a rush. We need to leave. He'll come for us if he knows we're here. Just as I turned my eyes back to the photo, the sound of tires squealing broke the stillness. I froze, my chest tightening. The faint light of headlights pierced the darkness. Get back! I hissed, dragging Lena behind a rusted old pump. That's when I saw him. The man from the diner had found us. I pressed myself against the cold metal of the gas pump, my heart thudding in my chest. The man stepped out of his car, and the headlights illuminated his tall figure. He scanned the area, clearly looking for us. Who is he? I whispered to Lena, my throat dry. He's dangerous. I can't explain it all now, but he won't stop until he finds the photo. Her eyes were wide with fear, and I could see her trying to steady her breathing. Should we run? I asked, the thought sending a rush of adrenaline through my veins. Not yet. If we run now, he'll see us. We need to wait for the right moment. Just then, the man turned towards the station, moving slowly but deliberately. He reached for something inside his jacket. My gut twisted as I tried to guess what it was. Stay low, Lena urged, crouching down. I followed her lead, but the urgency of the situation made my head spin. From my position, I could see him pull out a flashlight. He swept it past the car, the beam carving through the darkness with a dull authority. I caught a glimpse of determination etching itself on his face. We have to go, I said, my voice barely a whisper. Not yet. Lena gripped my arm, her eyes narrowing into slits focused on the man. He seems to be searching for something. We can use that. I wasn't sure I understood her logic. But before I could voice my doubts, the man took a few steps towards the entrance of the gas station. Now! Lena whispered fiercely. We darted out from behind the pump and ran towards the back of the station where shadows deepened. The sound of our footsteps seemed loud in the still night air, but I was too frightened to care. As we moved, I glanced back just in time to see the man lift his flashlight, and his eyes met mine for a heartbeat. My body froze, and Lena pulled me forward. Keep moving. She urged. We reached the rear of the building and ducked behind a delivery truck. I could hear the man calling out, his voice cold and calculated. Come out, Lena. You can't hide from me. The way he said her name sent chills down my spine. What does he know about you? I gasped, pressing my back against the truck. She shook her head, her expression distant. More than I wanted him to. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated through the gas station as the man kicked open the door, but instead of fear, a glint of resolve crossed Lena's face. We can't let him find us. There's a way out through the back of the property. I nodded slowly, trying to gather my thoughts as she quickly formulated a plan. We'll go through those trees. Just stay low and keep quiet. But before we could make our move, the ground shook as a second car pulled up, engine roaring. Lena looked at me, panic flashing in her eyes. This isn't good. We need to hurry. That's when I heard another voice, one I recognized from the diner. Lena. I know you're here. Who are they? I asked, my voice trembling. More trouble than I expected. We were caught in the crossfire, and while I knew we needed to escape, the trees ahead seemed far too menacing. As I took a step back, I caught a glimpse of something shiny in the mud, a piece of evidence that changed everything I thought I knew. The moment shifted. It was a watch. Engraved with initials I recognized. Wait, I murmured as questions surged through me. Is this? Before I could finish my thought, Lena yanked my arm, dragging me closer to the trees. Now! We can't stay here. We dashed into the darkness, and as we ran, the looming question hung heavy in the air: what had I just uncovered? The cold embrace of the woods swallowed us as we sprinted, branches snapping underfoot. Shadows danced around us, their whispers echoing in the wind, urging us to go faster. I felt Lena's grip tighten on my arm, our breaths mingling in the cool night air. "What is that watch?" I panted, struggling to keep pace with her. The question clawed at me, desperate for an answer. "Just keep running," she replied, her sharp voice cutting through the darkness. "There's no time." An unseen rustle sent my heart racing. I risked a glance behind us, but the shadows were thick, obscuring the figures from my view. They could be right there, maybe just beyond the trees, watching. Suddenly, Lena halted. I stumbled to a stop beside her, my chest heaving, confusion casting a fog over my thoughts. "What's wrong?" I whispered. "Shoo," she urged, crouching low, eyes scanning the tree line. "Listen." We fell silent, the kind of silence that brings a heavy dread. I strained to hear anything, but all I could sense was the lurking weight of the dark surrounding us. That's when I heard it, a distant voice floating through the forest, threading together words I couldn't decipher. "They're close," Lena murmured, the fear in her voice palpable. "We have to find a safe place. Follow me." Before I could argue, she moved deeper into the woods, guiding us along a narrow path. I followed cautiously, each step feeling like a gamble. The woods closed in around us, the branches clawing at my clothes as I ran. Eventually, we stumbled upon a dilapidated cabin, its wooden structure barely holding together. "This is it," Lena said, her voice steady again. We rushed inside, closing the door behind us. The smell of aged wood and dampness engulfed us. "What now?" I asked, my voice trembling as I leaned against the wall, eyes darting to the windows. Lena knelt down, searching through the cobwebbed corners. "We wait. They're still looking for you, and we have to stay in the dark until it's safe." "Who exactly is looking for me?" I demanded, my frustration bubbling. "What are you hiding?" "The shadows can't just take anyone," she said, still rummaging. "They're drawn to curiosity, to questions. The watch, it belonged to one of them." "What are you saying?" I squinted, piecing together fragmented memories. "The girl from the diner?" "Yes," Lena confirmed, her eyes locked on mine. "And others, too. They are cautionary tales. When you start looking for answers, they notice. And it doesn't end well." A chill crept down my spine. "But what is the watch supposed to reveal?" She took a deep breath. "That your investigation wasn't just a coincidence. You're a part of this story now. Out of all the uncertainty, that hit me hardest." "How do you know all this?" "I've been running from the truth for too long. You saw too much, and I can't let it take you, too." Suddenly, a crash echoed outside, jolting us. "They've found us," Lena hissed, her eyes wide with terror. I pressed myself against the wall, heart racing as the voices grew louder. "What do we do?" Before she could answer, the door rattled violently, splintering dangerously at the hinges. "You're in there, Lena." The deep voice called out, sending a wave of dread washing over me. "I can hear you." A part of me wanted to call out, to expose myself to whatever was lurking out there, but a voice in my head screamed to stay hidden. "Shoo!" Lena hissed, panic etched in her features. They banged against the door again, the wood creaking ominously. I glanced around the cabin, searching for a way out. "Is there another door?" I asked desperately. "Not here. We have to hold out until they lose interest," Lena said, grabbing my hand tightly. But my mind was racing, the weight of every unanswered question pressing down on me. The shadows were closing in, and I didn't know what was real anymore. Just then, the door cracked open, revealing a figure cloaked in darkness. It was the man from the diner. His grin sent a cold chill through my spine. There's nowhere to run, Lena, he purred, his voice smooth like ice. I couldn't breathe, my fight-or-flight instinct kicking in. What do you want? I shouted. Heart racing. His grin widened, sinister in the dim light. I want the girl. You're just in the way. Before I could react, Lena made a move, pushing me back and springing toward him. You can't have her. Shadows coalesced around his feet, snaking their way toward her. You should have stayed hidden, little girl, he taunted, a flicker of darkness swallowing him whole as the cabin plunged into pitch blackness. My pulse thundered in my ears as I stumbled into the deeper shadows of the room. I was trapped between my instincts to stay and my desperation to leave. But as I stood isolated in the obscurity, my phone buzzed furiously in my pocket, a flashlight, a lifeline. Gathering my courage, I pulled it out. The small beam cut through the dark, revealing the chaos that had erupted. Lena was gone, and he stood in the center of the room, the shadows swirling, emanating an insatiable hunger. Where did she go? I shouted, panic creeping into my veins. With his lips curling into a malevolent smile, he pointed towards the now vacant doorway. She's simply gone, and you can join her if you stay. The conversation echoed in my mind, Lena's warnings, the girl's warning, the whispers of the shadows. With a burst of determination, I pivoted and dashed through the door, my heart pounding. Outside, the night air hit me like a wave. I could still feel the shadows creeping around the cabin, desperate to pull me back, but I sprinted forward, away from whatever truth lurked behind me. As the woods opened up before me, I felt the weight lift, if only for a moment. I turned to look back. Darkness engulfed the cabin, leaving it a mere silhouette against the stars. I was free, yet a chilling realization washed over me. Freedom didn't mean safety, nor did it mean the end of the shadows. They would stay lurking, waiting for curiosity to rear its head again. With every ounce of my energy, I took off down the path, desperately seeking a resolution, yet knowing the questions would never truly fade. I escaped, but the shadows had tagged along, and the story was far from over.